There were lots of different news items today that I wanted to cover in the channel in some form or another, but to be honest, there were so many of them, and there were so many that I didn't necessarily have enough to talk about in order to discuss a whole video, that I thought I'd just do a sort of general boxing news update today. I guess one of the first things to go into straight away is it looks like Terence Crawford will be fighting Lundy next time out. Obviously, Crawford was very much in the mix for the Manny Pacquiao fight, with Manny Pacquiao signing to fight Tim Bradley. This leaves him, without an opponent, and it looks like he'll be fighting Lundy. Now, I was under the impression Lundy was going to be dropping down to 135 pounds and fighting in the lightweight division. But I would assume this fight is going to be made at the light welterweight division of 140. And obviously, Lundy is obviously viewing Terence Crawford as a big enough fight to go back up in weight division. Obviously, he's getting sufficiently rewarded financially, and it's a big enough event. And obviously, from Lundy's perspective, if he was to beat Terence Crawford, that would put him right back to the top of the tree. So it's a big opportunity for him in that sense. If I'm honest, though, giving a general summary, it's not a fight that I'm overly excited for. I don't see it as competitive. Lundy, he's a solid enough guy, but he's very, very beatable. And, Terence Crawford looks like a real top-class operator. So this fight's been made. It's slightly disappointing. I'd like to see Terence Crawford moving towards the bigger fights in the sport. Obviously, he missed out on the Manny Pacquiao fight, which would have been in that category. But there's still bigger names at 140 pounds. Victor Postol, Adrian Broner. Even guys like Provodnikov and Matisse, those are all better fights for me than Lundy. So, not overly excited about that particular one. Frank Buglioni, we're moving from pound for pound star Terence Crawford to Frank Buglioni, which possibly hasn't happened too many times before. But Frank Buglioni has announced that he will be returning. I believe he will be fighting on a Frank Warren copper box card, and Frank Buglioni will be returning at light heavyweight. Now, I guess the move does make sense in the sense that, he came up short, and despite performing with credit, he did come up quite short at world title level against Chudinov. Chudinov is widely regarded as the weakest 168-pound champion, so it makes sense to move him up to the division above. I've met Frank Buglioni. He certainly is a very, very big guy at super middleweight, and I should imagine that he should adjust to 175-pound with limited difficulties. I do know, with limited issues, should I say. I do know in the past that Buglioni has been tighter at the weight, and he certainly is a big guy for super middle, so I don't see light heavyweight in itself being a problem. What I do see being a problem is Buglioni taking the punches of some of the bigger operators at 175 pounds. The 168-pound division, the guys at the top of it, Arthur Abraham, Chudinov, Andre Ward, even to a lesser extent James DeGale, they're not the most ferocious punchers pound for pound in the sport. Now, if Buglioni was to get back to world title level, and I know that's somewhat questionable, he's a long way off at present, but if you look at the top guys at 175 pound, Kovalev, Stevenson, Beterbiev, John Pascal, they're all much bigger punchers. And the way that Buglioni's been hurt in fights before, obviously we saw him get stopped by Kamitsky, you'd have to question how he would do against those bigger men and bigger punchers. So, I can understand why they've made the move. Try something different after a loss. If Buglioni's title is to get a British light heavyweight championship, it's possible. There's names out there he could be put into the mix with at that sort of level. Maybe even European level. World level, I think he's going to come up short generally, and I don't think the move to light heavyweight is going to help that. I presume he'll return in an easier fight, but we shall see. Another Frank Warren fighter, Liam Smith, has announced he won't be fighting in February on the Frank Warren card. He wants to take a break, rest up, and come back in March or April. I know Liam Smith said last time out that, he felt a bit tired after all of his fights. He felt his body needed a rest from constant training camps. So it's likely that we won't see Liam Smith stepping into the ring anytime too soon, and it's going to be more like March, April. He's talking Miguel Cotto, you know, he keeps mentioning that name. He's obviously motivated to get the really big fights. I get the impression he wants to fight a name from across the pond. You know, he's been talking Shane Mosley, been talking Canelo, been talking Cotto. I'm not sure I see those fights as realistic for Liam Smith, really. You know, the guy's got a very, very limited profile. To be fair, he's got a limited profile in the UK. I can't imagine it's much stronger in the US. And I just don't know whether Miguel Cotto would view Liam Smith as a reasonable comeback opponent. I mean, for example, you look at Matthew Macklin. Matthew Macklin is probably a bigger name in the States. With his Irish following, he probably sells more tickets in the States than Liam Smith does. And he's a much, much easier fight. I think when you get to Miguel Cotto's level, you're probably not overly motivated to win Liam Smith's title. You know, it's not all about that, winning one version of multiple world titles. And I wonder if Liam Smith will struggle to attract those big names. I really do. I'm not sure that the platform he's currently on and the profile he currently has are enough to make those big names come to fight him. But we shall see. Talking about other UK fighters, the IBF are going to force Lee Selby to fight his mandatory next time out. There is a final eliminator between Hunter and Barros, and it looks like Lee Selby will have to fight them next time out. You know, those guys are fighting in January. We know what the IBF is like with its mandatories. Just ask Kell Brook, just ask Tyson Fury. So Lee Selby will be given 30 days after that fight and have to fight the winner of Hunter Barros, probably around April time. As yet, unclear whether Selby will fight in the UK or whether Selby will fight in the US. Obviously, promoted by Eddie Hearn, advised by Al Heyman. So, could be an interesting one to see where he ends up. Finally, the last bit of news I wanted to highlight. Arthur Abraham looks like purse bids will be called for Arthur Abraham versus Ramirez. That's a tight fight. You know, Arthur Abraham's had a lot of things his own way recently. Fights against Stieglitz, Paul Smith, Martin Murray, all pretty beatable opposition. Yeah, this Ramirez, I haven't actually seen too much of him. I've heard conflicting reports as well. Some people are saying he's a real tough competitor. He's going to give Abraham problems. A lot of people are saying they see flaws in his game. You know, I personally haven't seen too much of him. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But the purse bids here seem to be revealing. You know, the way I look at Arthur Abraham, he's someone who's winding down his career. He said he's got 2 years left with Sauerland, and come that, he's looking forward to retirement. And he's not the kind of guy who seems motivated to have another big crack at Andre Ward or, you know, call Carl Frotz back out of retirement. You know, he's obviously a very, very well-known fighter, very, very solid operator in Germany. He's a bit of a celebrity over there. He sells a lot of tickets, fills out a lot of arenas, and by all accounts, he gets paid pretty well by the Sauerland brothers. Even if it is facing the likes of Paul Smith, even if it is facing the likes of Arthur Abraham, of Martin Murray, sorry. So I view Arthur Abraham as a kind of comfort zone type fighter. I think his inclination will be for this fight to go in Germany. I don't think that even the mega bucks are really, really going to attract him to go out to the States. You know, obviously if it goes to our purse bid scenario, that will somewhat be taken away from his hands. Although it will be difficult for Team Ramirez to win the purse bids, bearing in mind that as champion, Arthur Abraham will receive the vast amount of that purse. So that'll be an interesting one to follow. You know, if Arthur Abraham was to travel internationally to fight Ramirez, you'd have to say it would be a much more even fight. But you know what Arthur Abraham is like at home. He's perfected his style to the extent that the German public like it and the German judges seem to like it. How many close fights, you know, Stieglitz, Smith, Murray, have we seen go Arthur Abraham's way when, you know, they were up in the air like the toss of a coin? For me, it's an interesting saga, and will be interesting to see where this fight ends up and, you know, who ends up promoting it. So, yeah, a few different stories there. You know, we've had Terence Crawford, Arthur Abraham, some British interest, Liam Smith, Buglioni and Lee Selby. But it's busy, busy times in boxing, which is good for the sport. And looks like there's going to be some decent matchups at British level, at European level, at world level, going into 2016. Let me know your thoughts on any of the above stories. How do you see Frank Buglioni doing at light heavyweight? Do you see Liam Smith getting that big fight, getting that Miguel Cotto, or getting that Shane Mosley in the ring? And in terms of the most significant fight, perhaps Crawford v Lundy, how do you see that going? Arthur Abraham versus Ramirez. Give me your early picks. Many thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this roundup, do give me the thumbs up. I'd appreciate it.